This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi, it's Martin here from the Accelerator team at Robson Laidler, and I'm here today with Dr. Jen Cottam. Hi Jen, how are you doing?
Not so bad. Hiya Martin, thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Jen, tell us a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
So I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm one of the directors of TalkWork. So we're a B Corp mental health company and we work with employees of local organisations and national as well to help people to get back on their feet quickly, so improving mental health with talk and therapy and training. So
you said back on your feet? So
yeah.
There is a lot of prevention to do around this as well, though, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
So, are you mainly like picking up those pieces, as it were?
So we're often working with people where there is a defined mental health concern. So if people have experienced anxiety, depression or trauma, when there's people experiencing a difficult life event, maybe illness or bereavement, then we're stepping in to help people to recover quickly, and we see them within about 7 days of first referral.
So that's pretty quick.
It is fast.
How are you funded, just out of interest?
Through employers. So it's a little bit like an employee assistance programme, like an EAP, and we're funded by the employers that we work with. So it's free at the point of access for the people that use our service.
If I'm a greedy capitalist, why would I send someone to you at my cost?
Well, why would you
make your case?
Return on investment, for one.
That's where I'm leading you.
That's where you're after. Yeah, it just makes a difference. Why would you want an unhappy workforce? Why would you want a miserable, disengaged workforce who are dealing with difficult mental health problems that they're not telling you about? Yeah. Ultimately, it makes financial sense.
Of course, and that was an open, easy one question for you to get started. What are you seeing out there at the moment? Because of course, if you watch the news, there's a lot of doom and gloom, and I think it always has been, to be fair. But we have come out of the back end of an interesting couple of years. Let's just say, let's not say the dreaded L word, but it was a tough time for a lot of people. How are you seeing like a lift as people get back to routines and back to normal? Dare I say, or
I think we're in a mental health crisis in this country at the minute, actually.
Right.
I do, and part of that is post-pandemic, but increasingly there's difficulties within the NHS in terms of delivering services, and we've got an enormous demand.
So do you think there's like a lot of untapped?
Yeah.
And that's where employers can actually just step in and go, well, actually let's get this sorted, let's start.
Yeah, for employees who've got people in their workforce that they really value, that they want to help, that actually are important to the business. It makes sense to be involved in that.
So of course we're talking, or listeners are largely people that run businesses. Mm-hmm. That I would imagine the pressures from within the workplace are different for people that run businesses versus the teams that work for the business owners. Do you have any idea, anecdotally even, of like whether people are like self-referring as business owners? Do you see more people, or do you see more of their teams turning up? Or
I think you're right that there are different pressures, aren't there, on people who run businesses. Yeah. So often those pressures look like maybe being more time poor, particularly in the early days of establishing a business. You would say that. Yeah. And then, of course, you've got all the knock-on effects of that. So if you're time poor, you're not then accessing your usual coping strategies. You're maybe not got time to go to the gym or see your mates.
You're not exercising, socialising, seeing your family.
Yeah, you haven't got time to go to the doctors.
Time to decompress. All of that is stolen by that time pressure, isn't it?
Yeah. So there is that. But we do see a lot of business owners and directors of businesses who aren't necessarily owners or shareholders coming forward for support now. Yeah, we do. I think that's changing over the last maybe 5 or 6 years.
Because they're kind of sending themselves, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's not like, I've got a team member, I want to look after them. The reason I ask that is probably because I know that running a business can be a very lonely thing. Mm-hmm. I'm quite lucky at Robson Laidler. We've got a great leadership team, and we bounce off each other quite a lot. But if you're the one person at the top of a business where you kind of look behind you and you see a household that's maybe relying on the income you generate, and you look below you and you see a whole team looking for inspiration and leadership, that's quite
it's a pinch point, isn't it?
It's an interesting place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you're right, it can be lonely and it can be isolating. And I think psychological therapy can help with that. You know, sometimes we do get caught up in particular patterns of thinking, I've got to do everything myself, can't delegate, it has to be me.
Yeah.
And sometimes a little bit of psychological therapy and life coaching, you know, hand in hand with that can support you to break away from those patterns.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Do you think that it's a mental block that stops people from? I mean, you mentioned delegation. It's something we've talked about a lot on the podcast, but people seem to be really reluctant to delegate. Is that a mental block, or is it or do you think there is just a technical reason, or do you think they're kidding themselves? There's a technical, can you unpick what stops people doing these obvious things?
So what stops people from delegating?
As an example, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, if I think about my own business, when I set it up, why did I not delegate in the first place? Didn't delegate because I didn't have experience of leadership and not really knowing how to. So the skills gap there. Didn't delegate because I didn't have the finances to do that, and didn't think,
so you didn't have a person in the team who did,
So, you know, how can I possibly recruit somebody else to do my role or to do parts of my role if I haven't got the cash for that? Yeah. And sometimes it's about not having the confidence as well, and you know, or experience of other people doing that and going through that process. I've done. I did the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses programme. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed it and recommend it for small business owners in this country. And I think one of the things that they'd encouraged is to think about not just your next hire, but your 7th hire. So when you're business planning, to engage yourself and your team in thinking about, okay, if we're ambitious for growth, we've got to think about all of the next sequential hires moving forward, not just the next one. It's a bit of a mindset shift, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, can you do you want to expand a bit on that, then? Or because people are probably, they're right in there struggling to justify their first hire. Mm-hmm. What kind of leap is required to?
A huge mindset leap, I think.
And is it just a mindset?
It's mindset, and then it's excellent business planning.
And execution. I mean, you've got to actually do it.
Yeah, absolutely have to.
Because some people never get to 7th hires. They never get past the couple.
That's right. Yeah.
But how do you unpick that from your angle then? Because if we say there are multiple challenges that new business owners face, and of course one of them is they might not have a plan, might not know how to execute the plan, and we on the technical side can do that as business coaches and advisors. But how do you unpick whether it is just a mental block? Is mental block the right word?
You could use that.
Because you can learn skills.
You can learn that, yeah.
But do people then spend more time learning how to do technical things than they do than inward, looking at their own minds? Do you think?
I think it goes back to that, spending time working on the business rather than working in the business. And if there's a barrier to you being able to step out of the business and plan and work on it and execute, then you can unpick that you could unpick it through therapy if you wanted to, or with a network of other business owners, other people who've got experience.
However you get there, you just need to release it. Okay. So obviously we've talked a bit there about the business owner. A crucial part of any business is the first, second, third, the 7th hire, all of your hires. What can business owners do to try and make sure they're getting the most from their teams then? Because often there's a saying, you don't leave a job, you leave a manager, don't you? It's normally the person above you that
absolutely
you get sick of. Yeah. It's not the job, it's not the sticking the things together, the writing the report, it's the person you're doing it for. It's that one
person, isn't it? It's that relationship with the immediate line manager ultimately makes an enormous difference as to your satisfaction at work, your engagement with work, and ultimately whether or not you stay.
And what are, if we just say, what are managers, to cover any kind of hierarchy, anyone above who has a team under them, what are they getting wrong? And what we've got some tips on how they can do these things better, or?
So from a mental health perspective, how
I don't mean
across the board,
better training, sticking within your wheelhouse.
Sticking with it with mental health. So, training on spotting the signs of mental health, training on having difficult conversations with people and practicing and rehearsing that. Somebody's saying to you, I'm off sick because I'm enormously depressed and I've had some suicidal thoughts. What do? Do you freeze? Or do you lean into it?
I can imagine some people I've worked with who go, oh well, I'll take a couple of days, I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
I might not,
Yeah, well, thanks for letting me know.
I'll mark your file.
What
do you mark?
Yeah. So, some training on how to manage those difficult conversations, because they are going to occur if, of course, you've got people who have confidence in their line manager to be able to disclose that in the first place. And
of course,
that comes from that psychological safety side of things.
You're not going to share if you haven't got the right relationship, are you?
Sure, yeah.
Do you think that's people, the uncomfortableness of not knowing what to say, or do you think they're not close enough to the person?
I think both.
Because if a family member kind of went, oh, Uncle John, I'm really struggling, you wouldn't go, I'm not trained to deal with this. You would help a family member without the skills, wouldn't you? You would try. Do you think there's just like a lack of closeness in teams? Or?
Sometimes it might be lack of closeness or lack of empathy as well. If you've been, promoting line managers who lack empathy, then, best will in the world, they're going to really struggle with those conversations.
I had it tough as well, I just got over it. Like, right, well, we're not the same person.
Yeah, we see a lot of that, don't we?
How you mentioned about spotting skills. So I mean, we in our catch-ups and appraisals, we use the mental health. This is embarrassing. It's like say again, James. Continuum. Yeah. I was going to say the equilibrium, and I thought that's definitely wrong. The continuum where you start with how are you doing, and everyone's been trained on it. Where would you put yourself at the moment? What colour are you? Obviously red's bad, green's good. So we purposely build that in now to force that question. What are other businesses doing? Are they just not asking?
I think often they're not asking, but often that's because they're not getting the line management meetings in the first place.
Also, they're just not having a catch-up.
Yeah. I think there are many businesses that aren't offering, one-to-ones or regular enough one-to-ones. I was speaking to somebody the other day who was saying that in there they had a team of 90 people, which is just completely impossible to then have a one-to-one with your line manager even on a yearly basis, if your teams are so bloated.
So that's one person with 90 people
90
under them.
90 direct reports, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's like 2 a week. Yeah. You're not... Or it's like a 2 or 3 week exercise solid with no time for anything else, Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get through that, are you?
No, you're not, no.
So you really struggle anyway.
Having those meetings
you're not going to do them properly, let's put it that way.
Sure.
Sorry, go on.
So having those meetings in the first place, and then, having a framework like the wellbeing continuum or something else where you're just able to say, how are you and how are you feeling about work at the minute?
Yeah. I've got an idea on this, but how, you mentioned about training people to be able to spot the signs.
Yeah.
What does that look like then? What kind of things would present as a symptom, I suppose, to make a team lead kind of go, something wrong with Jen, I better have a word?
Sometimes you're looking for changes. In fact, often you're looking for a change in somebody's presentation. So that might be somebody who's usually a great communicator suddenly,
starts snapping at people.
Snapping, yeah.
Or stop speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
not always come out as aggression, does it?
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't always, People who may be always punctual, then perhaps being a bit late or a bit dishevelled. Noticing something's different, work maybe not being on time when it has been previously, declining to go to the staff night out. It's not always indicative of a mental health problem, but if it's a change,
might just not
fancy
like drinking and bowling all at once.
Sounds a bit overwhelming. I'm not up for that.
One of the things I was kind of going to lead to, but it's hard to spot those changes if you're not speaking regularly, isn't it? Because if I say to you, Dave's not performing. When did it start? No idea. Mm-hmm. How do you know he's not performing? Don't really know. Mm-hmm. It's hard to pick that, isn't it? Whereas if you sit with people regularly, quarterly as a minimum, I would suggest, but you certainly should be speaking more often. Mm-hmm. But if you're not checking in and actually having conversations, you're not going to spot that change, are you?
That's right, yeah. So it's knowing your team, meeting with them regularly, having the confidence to be able to ask, how are you? You know, without being too personal about it, and giving the space to that.
This might seem like a weird question, but does it matter if you care? Can you feign kind of, you know, empathy? Or I mean, I don't know what, because I know some people that go, I don't care how they are, I just want them to turn up and work. And I'm like, yeah, but caring about whether they're okay will make them work better. Is it possible to fake that? Just because we've got some weird people out there.
Yeah, I guess you can be coached into what to say, right? Yeah. Just as you can in any.
Because some people just not them. They go, I'm not a touchy-feely person. I would argue you shouldn't have been made a team lead. Yeah. But there are team leads who aren't touchy-feely people. I suppose that's a better way to frame it. Kind of go, well, I was the best welder, so I'm now the team lead in the team of welders. Okay, well, you are now a team lead. Yeah. Welding isn't all you need to do. Yeah. You've got to learn to do these things. And
asking people how they are in a way that communicates that actually there is going to be, you are listening and you are going to make a change if they're not well, and if that's within your capabilities to do so, then if you can't do that, then maybe you shouldn't be a team lead.
Probably shouldn't have been
Probably shouldn't have been
But if you are there now, you have to just accept that to be a good team lead, you need to change, don't you? And I suppose you can help with that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What are the obvious benefits from getting someone back on track, and, you know, kind of how does that look then? Because once someone, well, how am I phrasing this? Someone might say, well, you know, you gave an example before, I'm really not feeling too good, I'm thinking about killing myself. You know, Dave, the non-emotive team lead, might hear that, but then not have the first clue where to go with that. Do you have any suggestions on what to do if someone does present and tell you point blank that they are struggling? Because it's not necessarily your job to fix it, is it?
No.
So and you might not be the right person to fix it.
No. But if somebody is telling you, I guess there's a couple of levels to that. If somebody's telling you, I'm not well, then I guess it's your duty to make sure that they've got the time off that they need, that they're cared for in that way. So from the employer point of view,
the things within your control, you need to flex those things, don't you? Yeah. And you've got a legal obligation after a certain size employee base, haven't you? Health and safety at work is also mental health, I think, once you're over a certain team size, isn't it? Yeah. I can't remember what it is, but there's also a moral obligation for any business, isn't it? I was going to say, but also you've got a legal obligation. For some people who, again, only do what they legally have to, this is part of looking after your health and safety of your people, isn't it? What other ways do you think there are then between the links between mental health and work? You know, obviously you've mentioned then people might start communicating in different ways. I presume they're just going to have less energy to put into their work, though.
Yeah, so
if they're carrying a load,
you'll see an impact absolutely on productivity. Yeah,
it's the obvious one, isn't it?
That's a huge one, but also just staff absence, and even if that's not directly attributed by the employee to mental health, so we know that people often don't tell the truth. If they haven't got confidence in their line manager, they'll not tell the truth. So they might take a couple of days because they're feeling really anxious or sad and tell the line manager they've got a bad knee.
I must have had a bad bit of food or something.
Yeah, food poisoning, all of that.
How do you get past that, though? Again, is it just building that close relationship?
Trust.
There's no way around it, is there?
Yeah, so it's culture. So from a cultural level, and that is from the top down. So modelling, for directors, modelling actually, I'm feeling a bit under the weather this week, it's my mental health, this is what I'm going to do about it, this is what I have done about it, being open and vulnerable and creating that psychological safety for people to be able to share and disclose.
We're in the northeast here, Jen, and I'm sure there's some older blokes out there going, never show weakness, this is all a load of rubbish. You know, what do you say to people who are kind of like that old school?
Well, you know, I think you'd be surprised. So we work with a number of factories. So Tier 1 suppliers of Nissan. We work with the North East Ambulance Service. You see a lot of veterans who become paramedics as their secondary career. You know, a lot of men who've perhaps experienced difficulties in the past, and actually,
they've been through a lot.
They've been through a lot, yeah. And they're pretty good at talking about their feelings. I think
So
it's
are we
changing.
seeing the end of that then, do you think?
Maybe not the end, but you know, we're seeing men and women regularly referring themselves for a bit of support. Therapy is just a conversation, that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a conversation with somebody else who has previously helped other people navigate this particular dilemma that you're in just now. That's all.
It's interesting because I keep forgetting my flow here, because you say something else and I go, all right. But so we obviously, you know, we do accounts, tax returns, VAT, payroll, and our business only exists because other people aren't as good at that as we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, you know, I'm talking about, you know, Dave the welder with a team of welders, and you know, none of them are mental health experts in any way, shape or form.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we see a lot of people who kind of go, no, I've got this covered. I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, do you find people kind of go, no, it's all right, I don't need this, I'll work it out.
Absolutely, of course, yes.
But like, I don't know how people expect they're going to just work it out.
Yeah.
These things aren't often something that will just pass, are they?
That's right. And I think there's been a lot of, on social media about, you know, wellness and promoting people, you know, going for a walk, get your exercise in, talk to people. All of that's well and good, and I'm a huge advocate for all of those elements to getting your lifestyle right. But sometimes you do need that expert support.
There isn't a walk long enough for some problems, is there?
Yeah. And you need somebody else to say, oh, actually, I think this is what's going on. You've got this particular pattern of behaviour. You know, I would recommend that you, I don't know, consider this particular change.
Try this, think about that,
different.
cut that out.
Yeah.
Just like you would if you're trying to lose weight, get fitter, you would get coached, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd learn tips from a coach who knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier then, Jen, you mentioned the team of 90 people with direct support. You know, like, so if you were speaking to me as a business owner and you saw that in my team, you know, like, let's just say the gloves are off, you can say what you want to this employer, you know, what would you be saying there? What would you recommend that they do to sort that out?
Gosh, I think what they would need to do is consider the structure of that organisation, and to take some time out from the business to get some expert consultancy to do that.
What would a good team size look like? How much time should people allocate? Is there a way to work out a comfortable level?
I mean, I tend to work on a rule of thumb of about 7 to 8 people in a team. I think that works reasonably well in terms of delegation and feeling cohesive as part of your team, being able to check in regularly.
So what if I say that I've got 40 welders on a shop floor? What do you want us to do? Split them up? I mean, like, I'm not trying to be awkward, I'm just trying to, like, because we see people go, no, it's just how it is. You don't know what it's like running the shop floor. Like, okay then, but like, do you need to then put like almost, instead of one team lead, you have like almost deputies in there who take a bit of the burden, or? Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah. I think it's just thinking about what that cost is for you. So, you know, for that business, yes, bringing in an extra 3 or 4 team leads, or 3 or 4 welded team leads might be a cost to you. But then, what is it costing you otherwise? Not having that line management and support for people.
Because across that team of 40, if you're getting 5% sick rate at any one time, that probably shouldn't be that.
Yeah.
Like, do you think the signs will be there and they're just not seeing them?
Absolutely. How could you observe 40 people?
Because the trade-off of, well, we can spend money to have more of this.
Yeah.
They might not see the risk. Like, it's a hidden cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of like, they don't realise that they've got a team of 40, but they could only have 38. Not suggesting you get rid of people, but if they were all more productive, they could do the work of more people, then, if that makes sense.
Very much so, yeah.
Are there any sectors that are particularly good at this and sectors that are particularly bad at this?
In terms of managing mental health in the workplace?
I mean, like, are you seeing a lot of, like, I don't know, a lot of, like, baristas coming to you at the moment, kind of going, no, it's just, I can't do it, I'm being a little bit facetious there, but, like, are you, like, who's struggling at the moment?
Who's struggling? I think it's, mental health it's global, everybody struggles from time to time. doesn't necessarily pick particular sectors. However, there are some workplaces that are less conducive to good mental health. So in my workplace, I can have as many regular breaks throughout the day as I want. I can start when I like, I can finish when I like, I can work a bank holiday Monday and then take the Friday off instead. There's a lot of flexibility there. There's a lot of autonomy. If you look at sort of what the health and safety executive says about stress and the things that impact upon that, you know, having flex, having good relationships with your line manager, having some autonomy, having control, understanding change and being involved in change management, all of those conditions will benefit the workplace.
Sounds like all the things you've said there are not the kind of thing a micromanager would allow you. It's like, does micromanagement, because a micromanager won't tell you why you're doing something, just what to do. They'll triple check it, give you no autonomy over it, no discretion over how it's done. Like that's not good for a worker, is it?
You're right.
You need to buy into what you're doing and why, and know why you're there and what the wider goal is, the longer vision, and have a bit of flexibility and autonomy, don't you?
How can you possibly grow and develop with that degree of micromanagement? It's just not happening, is it? It's an arrogant position to come from as well, because somebody who's micromanaging is assuming that they know
better at everyone. I can do everything you can do, but better.
Absolutely. Like
and I'm so good, I'm going to check everything you've done as well. And it's not going at which can't be good for the micromanager either, can it?
No, it sounds quite stressful.
I can't imagine that. I'm lucky. I'm a big picture person, not a detailed person. So I'm quite happy for my team to get on and learn their own mistakes within boundaries.
But some workplaces wouldn't necessarily foster that, not because they're, the culture isn't right, but just because you can't. So if you're on a factory floor,
you can't come and go when there's an 8-hour shift.
You just can't. If you're a paramedic and you're on a 12-hour shift,
what do they do then? How do they give? I nearly said give people the impression of the freedom. I don't mean that, but if you're on a shift of 20 people who all turn up and they do the same thing in the same window because you have to on a production line, what do workplaces like that do then? Because they can't just say, well, miss a day and come in tomorrow, make it up. They can't have those things. What can they do instead then?
I guess that's down for those individual workplaces to come up with the answers for that. I think, you know your own workplace best. And if you feel like your workplace is lacking in autonomy or flexibility, or if you've surveyed your staff, that's another sort of important
There's a good start, isn't it?
Survey the staff. What's going wrong? Where are we not quite hitting our targets for staff wellbeing and satisfaction and engagement? And then just go from there.
How many businesses actually measure staff engagement?
Oh, I don't know. Do you know?
I don't. Sorry, that wasn't a leading question.
We measure. We do. I guess part of the B Corp accreditation process as well, isn't it? Is just to make sure that we're keeping an eye to those metrics.
Well, we actually had it as a non-financial target.
Yeah.
We kind of went, our staff engagement was this. We want to see an impact. So we built that into strategy at board level.
Yeah.
Not being too braggy. I'm not saying we're perfect, but it's like, we want clients to be happy. What are we doing to make clients happier? But we want a team to be, happier as well. And it doesn't have to be complex, does it?
No, absolutely not. So in terms of surveying, ours is like half a dozen questions that we do twice a year, and that's a good benchmark, I think, for us for the size of business that we are.
If you get like 2 out of 10 from all your team, something's wrong, isn't it? You don't that's enough to say we need to do something. Do you? I mean, I was going to ask you what percentage of unhappy people leave a job. I'm not going to keep asking you for stats, but there is presumably a direct correlation between people who are unhappy in their workplace, even if it's not the workplace causing it, but. If people are unhappy in their workplace, that presume the staff churn, the staff turnover is going to be much greater,
Absolutely,
isn't it?
Yeah. So if people are unhappy, or if there's a values conflict as well, sometimes you see that, don't you, where perhaps the culture or the values of the business don't quite marry up with the values of the employee, and then you'll see a bit of discomfort, often depression is associated with that, and then...
What do you mean by that? Again, I think I know, but I don't want to lead you, but...
So if you feel that the business that you're working in isn't aligned to your own personal values, we get a values conflict.
Yeah.
And you know, in some instances we see, you know, even moral injury. So when you know, during the pandemic, back to the pandemic, during the pandemic, I know you actually said the L word. What was the L? And I was thinking, what is that? Oh, lockdown. So
I think it was the lockdown that caused most of the damage. But anyway, that's exactly it.
Where were we? The
moral injury.
The moral injury. Yeah. So you know, we did see that in the pandemic, that people were forced to work in different ways, particularly in hospitals, where, you know, even in this country we did see people, nurses and doctors, having to choose who's going on this ventilator. That did happen, and then we created moral injury, because we've got employees for whom an important value is, I'm helping somebody, I'm helping people, helping others, and suddenly it's in conflict with what they're being asked to do.
I would imagine the NHS would say, well, we want to help everyone as well, and that was more of a resource allocation.
Of course it is, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, an area where I've seen this present is the business owner is mercenary, sell at all costs. We don't care if it's the right product or service, get the sale.
Yeah.
But if you're a normal person, you don't want to rob people, do you?
Absolutely.
You want to help people with an appropriate product or service, rather than shoehorn a product or sale out to someone at any cost, don't you? I don't want to pick on double glazing salesmen, but we've all had that person at your door who kind of goes, oh, you know, if you buy now, we can... Like, you know, and I suppose that's an obvious disconnect in values, isn't it? Maybe you shouldn't be in a high pressure sales job if you're not that person, kind of thing.
Yeah.
What? So can you expand on what do you mean by like mental injury? Then what?
I guess a moral injury. I suppose what I was meaning by that was just when you have an extreme case of values conflict, which happens rarely. To do something that is against, it's just against the fabric of who you are. Yeah, and that's very rare. You might see it, you know, in veterans or, you know, on the odd occasion throughout the pandemic. But in day-to-day work, we tend not to experience. It's more just a disagreement in principles rather than how does that kind of present? And and again, I presume that switches someone off in just the same way, doesn't it? Yeah. So burnout, disengagement. It's all disengagement from the job, isn't it? Yeah. Lack of sleep, stress, tiredness, you know, emotional difficulties, being snappy, irritable. Yeah. Comes out in all sorts of different ways. What would you say to an employer who kind of says, well, you know, once they cross the threshold into my workplace, I will look after people, I'll make sure everything I deliver here is fine, and once they leave, they're off my watch. I've got no, like... What do you mean when they leave? When they leave the office at the end of the day, as opposed to... So you're like 9 to 5, they're mine. Yeah. You're all my, you know, look out, I'm going to look after it, but once you go home, I'm not bothered. Because someone might say on a weekly check-in or a quarterly appraisal or whatever, actually it's like home is the issue. But, it doesn't matter what it is, home is the issue. Like, should the employer say, well, what can we do? Or because they can't say, well, we'll change your shift, or like, maybe they could. It's a terrible example, but they can't say, well, I'm going to take you off that job, or don't worry, you haven't got to do that on Mondays anymore. But they may feel like, well, should I get involved in home? Or I guess it's what you mean by getting involved, isn't it?
So I think a poorly child, as an example.
If you're talking about anything that occurs in our life outside of the 40 hours a week that we're in our workplace, that is going to have an impact on how we perform at work. So sleep is a great example. We know that if you're not sleeping, for most employees in the UK, we lose something like 11 days of productivity every year for every employee.
What, just because people are tired?
Because we're tired.
Or overtired?
Yeah.
Wow.
Per employee.
That is a staggering. So 260 work days for most people. You've lost 5% of your...
Yeah. So there's a massive impact.
So that's like giving everyone 2 more weeks holiday.
Yeah. which you might as well do that.
Which actually might help with the tiredness,
help with the
to be fair. You may as well formally give them that 2 weeks.
Sure. So, but if somebody's saying to you, I'm not sleeping, and you know, and if you've got the attitude that, oh, well, that happens outside of work, so it's not it doesn't affect me and I'm not interested, like, it is affecting you. It is affecting your business,
that's
whether
a
you like
stat.
it or not.
So you give us a great stat.
Oh,
I've asked you the wrong stats.
The wrong ones.
11 days, that's...
Yeah, it's huge. So, there are things that you can do about sleep as well.
Because it's not 11 days, sorry, is it, Jen? It's not they missed Tuesday and then it's... You don't know which bit of the productivity was hurt. It's spread, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Everything they do is that little bit worse. Mm-hmm. And you don't know where it's going to be. You don't. I presume it's erratic. You can't go like, oh, have you down day to day? I don't need it. Like, it could happen on the day you really need someone.
Sure. So this is why, you know, employers can offer and should offer support for things like insomnia. You know, we do insomnia treatments in our team. Like 3 or 4 sessions of insomnia treatment is all that's needed. Yeah.
Man, I need to sort myself. Yeah, because I've got some horrendous sleep issues.
Have you? But do you track your sleep?
I used to, but then I actually found that was more anxious.
Good. Well, that's the thing not to do.
So now I don't. My watch in theory would tell me. It's funny because James is sitting in the corner here. We refer to James infrequently, but enough that regular watchers will know he produces it. I'd also chipped in with that word before that I couldn't remember. But I would often say to James, like, oh, according to my watch, I had 8 hours last night. I definitely didn't. It was awful. I was awake all night checking me watch. So I've actually found that by just not... You know, if I wake, I don't check the time. So I've learned some basics. That's
important because you know we know most devices don't monitor your sleep correctly anyway, and actually it does increase your agitation.
Because you just lie really still for a while, it thinks you're asleep, and then that's quite a kick in the teeth. To be fair, when you wake up and goes, "Well done, you got it." Like, no, I didn't.
I feel worse.
Oh my god! Like, I'd be lucky if I had 5. You know what I mean? So that's a great example. Like, you know, again, most employers would kind of go, but why would I give someone what insomnia? What do you mean? Like, so like that 11 days is nuts. Have you got any other cool stats that you were keeping up your sleeves?
I haven't got any cool stats. Sorry, I'm not a cool person. I don't have cool stats at my
you're pretty cool so far. Don't put yourself down. What are the big things or like big factors or presenting? And, you know, sleep is like that's huge. A big thing.
Yeah,
what's your number 2 then?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing a lot at the minute is colleagues coming forward with questions about neurodivergence. So, do I have autism? Do I have ADHD?
Right.
Typically, there's other categories under the umbrella of neurodiversity, but typically that's the things, the big ticketers. And that does impact on how we perform at work. So I do have a stat for you here.
So you are cool. Well, I haven't heard the stat yet.
Well,
I'm going to reserve judgment.
There's a bank. I think it might be Chase, Morgan Stanley, maybe. But I can message you on that later. But they looked at productivity levels for people with autism and found that people with autism were 140% more productive than everybody else.
Wow.
Yeah. How awesome is that? Certain roles.
Not at everything, presumably.
In certain roles, which I think is key. So it's making sure that we've got the right people in the right roles. And again, have you got your line managers trained up to make sure that we've got the right people in the right roles?
You've touched on a couple of interesting things there. So one is a little bit of an insight into the mind of Marty here. So we did some training recently where we looked at like behavioural, I suppose, models. You know, there's all kinds of models. You got your DISC, Myers-Briggs, and all kinds of stuff. And I came out on one of the measures as 100% big picture, 0% detail. But my background is, 25 out of the 30 years at Robson Laidler, I was a chartered tax advisor.
How interesting.
In like really nuts level of detail. Like sometimes you'd work on one thing for like a week, right? A massive, like hundreds of figures, really complex stuff. And I kind of saw this thing and I thought, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how can I be a chartered tax advisor but with zero detail in it? And it was quite interesting because the person leading the training It's kind of went, yeah, but were you always exhausted and tired? I was like, well, yeah, I was actually. I went, well, because you're working not in your preferred or better style. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, that.
Does it make sense the way I worded that?
Perfectly. So,
and I was like, as soon as they said that, I was like,
that makes sense.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
I was forcing myself to do something against the grain. And because I remember I used to go in, I was talking about this the other day, I would go in and say to my dad, who was like proper Geordie bloke, just strong, manual job. And I'd go in and go, man, I'm exhausted. And he'd go, how? He couldn't comprehend that I could possibly be tired. He's like, how? You've been resting all day? Because he saw sitting down as rest, I was like, well, I don't know what to say, but I'm exhausted. Yeah. It used to wipe us out, And he just couldn't get it.
That's really interesting. You do see that very much with neurodiversity. I guess that people, when we've got pockets of areas of the business where people might be working into, but they're perhaps not playing to their strengths, or that the environment just isn't quite right for us as well.
Too noisy, too quiet.
Yeah. We've got in our shared office, we've got an admin office, and then we have clinical spaces, and I work from the clinical space, which is very quiet, and that's how I like it. But we've got an admin office, and they've always got the radio on, and as soon as I walk in, they switch the radio off because then I can't concentrate on what they're saying. That's just
I literally can't hear what you're saying because I'm listening to the call in on Galaxy FM or something.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's like how, because you can test that. Not easily, but you can test these things to see if people work better in groups or in isolation. I had a bit of a surprise on that as well, because I like having my own room. But anyone who walks past, they're like, almost if I hear footsteps, I'm like, who's that? Who's that? Are you coming in? Like, come in, sit down. We get a cup owl. So kind of like a bit of a strange one like that. I definitely work better on certain things at certain times on my own.
Yeah.
Certainly if I was trying to put a couple of hours into a tax problem at the moment, I kind of I can still turn that on a little bit and just kind of go, keep out, don't bother us. I couldn't have the radio on.
Yeah.
That drives me mad. Either. I hate hearing about DJs weekends while I'm trying to focus on a problem. Songs I can get away with, but if there was no DJs, I'd be all right. But it's really weird. What do you do again if you're Dave with a team of 40 welders? You kind of can't go. You cannot just give them a room, can you? So how?
I mean, I think you would hope that somebody who has ended up, in a job as a welder, that fits their...
Hopefully they wouldn't have ended
how
up
they work.
Yeah,
that fits them best. But that just goes back to the smaller teams thing, doesn't it? If you know that. And
actually, you haven't got 40 welders all doing the same thing, have you? There's always going to be one who's better at the corners or like the finishing off, the snagging. You probably have your team strengths. You probably get a feel for them, don't you? Even if it's just the technical strength.
And having conversations with people about it to find out, how to work best. It's not promising I can make a change. It's just how to work best.
Yeah. So one of our other directors, Nick Wilson, said, I don't know whether this was his original line or whether he'd seen it somewhere. But we were talking about something about trying to get people to do stuff. And he kind of said, the problem is, and I think we might have been talking about schools, but it could have been workplace, it could have been anywhere. He said the problem is too often people are trying to teach fish how to climb trees. So I don't know if you heard, and I was like, what are you on about? He went, well, if you're a fish, you should be swimming. Monkeys climb trees. Like, not everyone's a fish or a monkey. And it just makes you go, wow, got you. I know exactly what that means. But I suppose the practical application in a workplace is a bit, because fish and monkeys are easy to tell apart, but people aren't that easy to sort, are they?
People aren't, but also people don't necessarily know themselves either. It might just come out as agitation, or it might come out as being irritable with their colleagues. Or just
exhausted at the end of the day because they've worked against the grain.
Or not productive. And I guess it's having a conversation with your line manager and banging that drum.
But keep going back to communication, don't we?
It's so important, but then also having somewhere to refer people to if they are struggling. So whether that's, you know, an EAP or like an independent service like ourselves.
What does that mean again?
Sorry, employee assistance program.
Yeah.
Or like an independent therapy agency, or, you know, you're knowing to signpost them to their GP if they're just feeling a little bit unwell.
Yeah, now my mind's taking on quite a bit of things. Have you got some simple ideas? You're probably going to say communicate. You're not allowed to say communication. Simple tips for people with teams then. But like, where do they start?
Yeah, where do you start? So I think looking at policies and procedures for a start, making sure that at that level we've got our policies right.
What got examples of bad policy or good policy then, or
just making sure that the policies are fit for purpose. So I don't know, like, think about a bad policy, but, you know, have you got a policy that allows people, you know, flexibility or time off when they're unwell? Is your sickness absence policy up to scratch? Is it not too punitive? You probably start to phone say,
have you got policies?
Yeah.
Because actually there's a lot of people who just like to know what the policy is.
Yeah.
And the fact it's missing is in itself like a trigger. I don't like that word, but some people like to know what they're allowed to do and just want to do it.
Absolutely,
just
that
tell me what to do.
That psychological
I don't want loads
safety.
of freedom. I want to know what to do.
Yeah, I want to know what the boundaries are, and have we got a reasonable holiday procedure that people aren't scrapping over, particularly
or fighting over New Year's Eve or whatever.
Yeah. So making sure you've got the right policies. Making sure that folk are trained well, and then in terms of what team leaders can do, it's modelling, like, I'm not well, or I haven't been sleeping well, I'm going to get some help, or I've been reading this brilliant book on meditation, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So modelling that, and regular check-ins, which is another way of saying communication.
Just I did see you weren't allowed to say that, but I'm gonna let that go because it is important. Yeah. We're probably down to like the last five minutes or so on this, and actually I normally ask this question right at the end, but I'm going to ask it a little bit earlier, because what you tend to find is we normally stop the camera and then go,
and
on that. So what's the one thing? So you've got to distill this into one thing that employers or business owners just keep getting wrong on mental health.
One thing.
Bear in mind, I'm asking you a bit early, so if there's another one, you can throw that in. But like, what's the main thing, the biggest representation?
One thing which just absolutely is my huge bugbear is referring to unqualified clinicians. That happens. Right. So there are a number of employee assistance programs that that recruit people who aren't qualified. So the title of counsellor is not a protected title. So you, Martin, could sign yourself up as a counsellor tomorrow.
This really gets my goat, because you could also be a tax advisor.
Yeah,
staggeringly,
well there you go. We can do a swap.
Yeah, which is nuts, isn't it? Because you're not allowed to pretend to be a policeman or a solicitor from what but you could just say you're a counsellor.
I could do that.
It sounds like you are a counsellor.
I'm not. I'm a clinical psychologist.
Sorry,
which is a protected title.
Yeah.
But in terms of, we have lots of brilliant counsellors within our team who are qualified, but there's a number of EAPs that work with unqualified professionals.
How do people know, as consumers, as buyers, what should they be looking for?
So it is quite knotty, but looking to see whether the counsellor is BACP accredited or UKCP accredited for counselling.
We don't like acronyms on the show, Jen.
It's not great, is it? Looking to see their accreditation level and asking
what's BA?
British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy. Right. But that's specifically for counselling.
Okay.
So checking whether or not everybody in that organisation that you're referring to is accredited.
That's a good point as well, because it doesn't matter if the lead, the director is, the founder, it's, that's not who your people are going to be speaking
that's
to.
That's not who you see. Yeah. So this is my
all the people
huge
on the end of the line, are they right?
Yeah.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
I like that.
So checking that, are they accredited? Is the person who's answering the phone accredited?
Because you just got someone else just blagging it otherwise, haven't you?
Yeah.
And they might have been blagging for a long time, but it's still blagging, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the reason that upsets me so much is because often people are well-meaning on the telephone, so
they might be lovely,
might be a really nice person. Yeah, but what happens is you get a failure experience. So as a client, ringing up,
doesn't work, of course.
Doesn't work. Doesn't work. I'm not going to do that again because she was really nice and she seemed lovely, and if she can't help me, nobody can.
She definitely cared.
She cared. She was really nice and empathic.
My mother was lovely, but I wouldn't go to her for counselling.
Yeah. So that is my absolute biggest bugbear of the moment. So it's checking that people on the end of the phone are fully qualified, and there was another one associated with that. Gosh, I did. Oh, that's gone.
It's all right. So because I interestingly thought that you would say that people haven't got a program in place. I presume that's a close number 2 then, is it?
Yeah.
Because the wrong program, well, at least they were trying.
They were trying, but, yeah. Not having a program in place, absolutely.
And this isn't just you. I can tell from the way you're speaking, it's not just you saying we want money.
Absolutely.
Buy our stuff.
Do you know what? I go to somebody else. Give me a ring, and I'll give you the list of approved people. Yeah. But there are a lot of charlatans out there, and there's a lot of well-meaning people out there who just aren't qualified too.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you're getting.
I might have told this story on here before, but I've certainly told plenty of people. We were given a proposal for services for a pair of lads who were going into business together. One was already a client, one wasn't a client. So if we were successful, we would take on one combined, slightly bigger business. And it was many, many years ago now. We give them a price for whatever they needed at the time. I'll say it was £1,000. That kind of number for whatever they were getting. And one of the lad who wasn't already a client kind of went, that's way more expensive than what I'm paying at the moment. I was like, all right, okay, well, this is what we do, how we're going to do it. Without being too blunt, that's the price for what you need, you know. But out of curiosity, what are you paying at the moment? And it was literally, we were £1,000, 1,100 quid, and he went, oh, I'm only paying 150 quid at the minute. I said, wow, that's if it said 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, I would have went, all right, well,
ballpark.
Yes, just what it is. But wow, that's so dramatically different. Who are you using out of interest? And he went, oh, well, there's a lad, and I think he said the golf club, but I can't remember. And he went, lad I know from the golf club. I mean, he's a fireman, but he does accounts as well. I was like, all right. And I kind of was a little bit dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say. Yeah. Luckily, the other lad went, you're embarrassing yourself. Yeah. Stop talking. I was like, wow, yeah. Can you... I wouldn't have the goal to kind of go, oh, Jen, I know you clearly know what you're talking about, but the lad from the club said his mate's a good listener. I'm going to go with him. Yeah. It's it was staggering to me, that, isn't it?
Absolutely staggering.
What was your second one then? Because you looked like you were going to give us a couple.
So the second one was about...
we'll finish on this if that's okay.
Sure. So that was about checking in, making sure that if you have subcontracted to an EAP, that they are able to work with your risky members of staff. So people who are suicidal, because sometimes that's excluded, and people who are on the cusp of being unwell, because sometimes people are excluded because they're not poorly enough.
Right.
So you might have somebody who's really good at masking, and it's fine, I'm getting there. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I'm resilient. I'm bringing it all together. I'm not going to be.
Which is almost the prevention, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose the checking in regularly is the prevention. On the cusp, so some people don't do that, and they don't do the right.
Yeah,
okay,
so some providers would exclude those folk, and just making sure that those people are covered. Because imagine ringing up for the first time,
someone's brave enough to admit they need help, and then, oh sorry, computer says no.
Yeah.
That must
You're
be
not
harsh,
poorly enough.
yeah.
Come back when you're a bit more poorly.
Yeah, we need to wait a while. We're going to let you stew,
Yeah,
which is always just going to end up presenting down the lane, isn't it?
of course.
Listen, Jen, that's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah, time flies. Keep in touch is the thing, isn't it? Check in, keep in touch, pick a provider who's the right provider, and hopefully you'll have a nice productive team who you're going to get, 11 days minimum if you can just get them to sleep.
Get them to sleep.
That sounds like a great productivity hack. We can give you 5% more work from your existing team without doing anything. Nice and simple. Jen, thanks very much. I've really had a good chat there.
Thanks, Martin. That's great.
Hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please reach out to Jen if you want to know more about her services over at TalkWorks. Or she'll refer you to someone else if you think she's just a charlatan trying to nick money off you. But she's clearly not. Clearly cares. Thanks very much, Jen.
Thanks.